If I get up for 2 minutes. This is much better. All right, Mrs. Webster's here. We'll get started. All right. Let's wait on Ms. Barker and a couple others. So how did testing go with iReady? Did we get everyone complete? Well, we had a couple stragglers.
I still have a couple more to give.
Yeah, I know the district knows that some of our students have been out, and I asked Mrs. Morris to extend our time here at Cedarbrook due to that, and she said yes. So whenever those students come back, just make sure that they complete the assessment. So it all ties into today's PD, where we're looking to prepare ourselves as a grade level cohort, as well as our individual classrooms, being able to look at our diagnostic data and break it down so it benefits our students. So before we get started in the chat, I would like for you to answer this question. What are your thoughts about data? What are your thoughts about data? What comes to your mind when you hear that word? Take the next 2 minutes.
Mr. Akbar, excuse me, but you're echoing.
Oh, I know that. How about now?
Okay, well, I don't.
Much better?
I think so, but I don't know. When you talk, we'll be able to tell.
Can you hear me?
Yes, better. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yep.
See what I put.
I honestly feel like data can be skewed to support what you wanted to support to an extent.
Headache. Definitely can be skewed based on different things. We know that, if different things are put in place, we have different outcomes. It definitely drives instruction. Another 30 seconds.
What the fuck? No.
You're unmuted.
I agree there, Ms. Small. Definitely time consuming. And this year, the district is taking the initiative to make sure that we have time to actually sit down and break down our data compared to just being thrown at us and then, figuring out a time to do so. So let me ask you this question. If I offer you $100,000 to jump from an airplane without a parachute, would you do it? Yes or no? Put it in the chat. Yes or no? Never. Okay, so all no's. I see the no's. I see no's. And that's probably what I bet that you were going to say. No. But what if I switch it up, right? And I say this. What if I told you that the plane was already on the ground? Would you jump out of it then for that amount of money? Of course, right? Yeah, I'm seeing a bunch of yeses. Moral to this question or moral to the story is that, we need to know all the facts before we open our mouth and make quick decisions. That's why it's very important for today that you learn what we are going to do, the methods of getting to certain things inside the iReady classroom program so that you can take your time to dissect the diagnostic data and plan for you each and every one of your students inside your classroom. So there are going to be three different components that I'm going to talk about. The first one is iReady historical data. That's something new to me. Something a couple weeks ago that was shown to me that I didn't even know was a part of the iReady classroom toolkit. The iReady instructional groups. That's something that some of us are a little bit more familiar with. We're going to take a look at it. And then the iReady prerequisites. And that is helpful for a lot of different things. And we're going to hold that discussion when we take a look at our individual classroom data on October 3rd. Because overall, I'm just showing you for this PD how to navigate and get there. I am going to ask you to take this time to start a tab where you have your toolbox out already signed in into the iReady toolbox so that you can play around with it once I show you how you can navigate to that particular part. So take the next 2 minutes to do so. Please go again, open up a tab where you have your iReady toolbox ready. If we have the time, I'm going to talk a little bit about data forms, the data folders, who needs support with it, with how you can utilize it. All right. So we all know that we can use data from the diagnostics to help us with many of the priorities here at Cedarbrook, but only when that data is reliable and valid. With valid and reliable data, we know that we can analyze students' strengths as well as where they need to grow. We could plan for differentiated instruction. We can set goals with students. We can engage them in their learning. We can use the data during our collaborative POC or our staff team meetings. And the other thing that we can do is that we could connect to our families at home. So it's very important that we know how to navigate through the toolbox so that we're able to pull different information to help support our students. We all know that this only happens if we have good data. And that goes back to the airplane, knowing everything and how to make a correct decision based on all the information. Now, we know iReady has many different formats, many different reports, and that's why I, as well as other coaches during the time, decided that iReady was probably the best program for our district because it had multiple resources, multiple things that can help support our children here at Plainfield. So when that happens, we empower ourselves as educators to make effective decisions based on the information, right? Where we're be able to analyze the data, determine the student's strengths and needs, and then that key part where Miss Small was said, having that time, right? Having that time where we could plan for instruction. And of course, we know that we got to help to facilitate all the learning for all of our students, That way that we as a school can grow, and of course as a district can grow. So the historical data, again, this was something that was new to me, something that I didn't know that we even had access to. Um, where this report is a little different than what I've seen before, but it's very helpful. It's kind of like something that we were fighting for as data coaches a couple years ago, where we were looking to see where a student scored over the previous years. And this report shows how students in your particular classroom progressed through the diagnostic last year, and if not, beforehand. So if you go to the reports tab, you go into class, and then you click on where it says historical on the left-hand side, you'll be able to see how your students performed last year. So take the next 2 minutes, go ahead in. Again, you're going to click on reports, click on class, and then click on historical. And this is great to, as we begin to start the year off, to see where they left off in the previous year, to see how it connects to this year's diagnostic starting off. It is also a good way to start to plan your intervention groups, enrichment groups, and get to see how a student has been performing over the last couple of years. Very similar to the fingertips that I sent you that had not just the iReady information, but the other assessments. So if you haven't taken a look at it, I actually gave you hard copies too. You know, it's a great thing to connect to this historical data that you'll find here. So it should look something similar to this, where at the top, you'll see your class's typical growth. And when they see their typical growth, it shows where, as a classroom overall, how many of your students met their typical growth. If you don't remember what typical growth is, once your student gets a score on the diagnostic, there's a certain amount of percentage that a student must grow that each academic school year. That is the typical growth. If they go higher than their typical growth, meaning more points they scored, more than the suggested points, then they have met their stretch growth. So as you can see, this grade level right here, I think this is our first grade here at Cedar Brook. You'll see that 141% of our students met their typical growth. Excuse me. We exceeded almost a typical growth and a half overall as a first grade level. Then you'll see the final placement, where students, they're coming to you. So right now, this first grade classroom, 12 of them are mid to above grade level. 4 of them are on grade level. And this is a little different again, where you have the gray hair. These 3 students didn't take the diagnostic assessment last year, which means that they probably wasn't in our district. But you see the other levels, and it tells you, breaks it down of where the students are as of right now. I'm not talking about the completed diagnostic that they should have completed by today. We're talking about last year's data. On the right-hand side, you'll see the percentage of lessons passed, which shows a visual breakdown of how the class did. You'll see 15 students here. They passed 70 to 100% of their lessons. Remember, this is where we want to be. And then we only had 1 student here that only passed 50 to 69% of their lessons. Down at the bottom, you'll see your students listed in the first column to the left. You'll see where they started off last year as far as their placement and how they finished. And you'll see if he or she met their typical growth. If it's over 100, they bypass the typical growth and stretch growth, especially if they get into the 200, 300, which we have many students do. So this student was supposed to only get grow by 32 points. this student grew by 80 points. So almost 3 times the amount of points that was expected from this student. And then, of course, you'll see the typical growth. So any questions, comments about the historical results? Let me ask you this before we move on. How can this be used inside your classroom? What could you do with this data? Somebody would like to unmute themselves and share?
I was going to say, I would use it by, take a look at how they scored this year compared to where they left off last year. And to
Right.
see where they, how they fall now.
Mhm.
Did they retain it? Did they drop down? Something like that. So in order to group them, if I was questioning where to group them, this might help me to put them, which group to put them in.
Excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Webster. All right. Let's get into taking a look here. Here's how we analyzed it as an administration team and data team. We took a look at your homeroom, where they left off, where how many students we had exceeding, which means that they are above grade level, how many students are meeting, and then how many students are bubble. Because remember, the ultimate goal is, we got our high flyers. We know they're always going to be there, but identifying these bubble students, which we'll take a look at your data on Monday, and we're going to look to see, how we can make that shift of all these students in the yellow going into the green. I think, I was talking to Ms. Gonzalez and talking about how much her students was growing, because I was just taking a snapshot of her students and what they how they did on the diagnostic, and I was trying to tell her that it's important. It's okay if our students are in a bubble right now. We just hope at the tail end that they get out the bubble, and you'll see on October 3rd, next Monday, you'll see how that data does correlate with the NJSLA. So it's very important that, once we get looking into it, the ultimate goal is look at the history of students and how we can move them forward. What do you know about the instructional groups? Mrs. Baca, what do you know about the instructional groups? How do you utilize it?
I'm looking at it right now, instructional groups. What is it? Grouping the children accordingly of where they are?
Exactly.
Oh.
So this report, the instructional grouping takes the work out of your hands. In other words, you don't have to create the groups. The groups is already created for you. But not only do they create the groups, but it gives you stuff that you can utilize with those groups, whether it's enrichment or it's interventions for those students that need that extra support. So after your students take the diagnostic, they'll be broken down into their groups where you'll be able to access it. So if you go to reports, you make sure that you're on class, you'll see the diagnostic, and all the way to the right-hand side will be your instructional grouping. Now, I remember playing around with this a couple years ago and seeing how this has changed over the last couple years, and how now, again, they give those resources based on those groups. Here's an example of what it looks like. So as you know, well, if you didn't know, with iReady, they break it down into 5 different placement levels. The first group one, if they're in group one, it means that they are 2 or more grade levels below. Group 2 means that they are 1 grade level below. Group 3 means that they are One grade below, two or more. Group 4 means that they're on grade level, and group 5 means that they are uh, above grade level. Again, the same first grade, one of the first grade classes. You'll see where these students fall. So the goal, the focus group will probably be this group 2, trying to get as many of them to move to group 3, group 4.
What did you say group 3 was again?
Sorry, group. So group 1 was 3 grades below. The group 2 is 2 grades below. Group 3 is 1 grade below. And then group 4 is on grade level. And group 5 is above grade level. Take the next 2 to 3 minutes, play around with it. Tell me what you notice, what you see. Sorry. I actually want to show you this.
Mr. Akbar,
Yes, ma'am.
when they took the diagnostic, they're taking the diagnostic test right now. So when they get the results back, where should they be to be in grade level? Will it say like early third or is it end of second? Like what is where they should be?
Early third.
Okay.
Yep. All right. I'm going to share my screen just so I can show you. I want to show you my window. So I'm in, again, another classroom here in this building. So as you can see, like I was saying, the 5 groups, it lets me know how many. And then this is just based on the students completing the assessment as of right now. So what I love about this with the instructional grouping is that you could click on to the actual group, the blue there. It'll give you the kids' names there. It'll let you know the placement, so their scale score, where the overall placement is. And then the 4 different domains: numbers and operations, algebra, measurement, and geometry. So you see the 4 domains, and it'll show you based on that domain what grade level they're in. If you click on the individual name, here is something that I printed out and gave you guys last year for your parents and for your data talks. It shows you where they are, where the typical growth or where they need to be. And then it shows you where the stretch growth is. And what I love is that they also show you the area where on grade level or a mid to above grade level is. On the right-hand side, here's where, again, everything is done for you. All you got to do is click on it, right? So the can-dos are the next steps. If you click onto that, you'll see that there are different things that are done for you based on the domain. Right now, I'm in numbers and operation, right? So if I'm on that, and I want my students to work on that based on where I am, what lesson I'm on, I can click on the right-hand side. It lets me know that these are the things that my students can work on. So I recognize numerals up to 100. If I click on that plus sign, it tells you exactly what additional resources and what lessons I can use to help that individual student or that group. So you could click onto the piece and it tells you the additional resources, like I said, and let's get to it, just so you can see. All right, and it gives you, if you want to read more, tells you a little bit more about it, what you need to do. Also on the left-hand side, how it connects to individual standards. And what prerequisite lessons that you can use in order to reteach. All right, so that's instructional grouping. How can this be utilized inside your classroom? Anyone? How can you utilize this inside your classroom, the instructional grouping? How can this benefit you?
It helps
I
you
mean,
group the students.
yep, it helps you group the students, but it also provides you with resources. It also provides you with resources that you know which previous lesson that you can go to reteach in small group.
Now I have a question. Now, if most of my students are in grouping 1 and grouping 2, can I teach those lessons and then go
You
to teach
can. We're
whatever?
going to talk about that. Remember, there's built-in prerequisite days that you can utilize in order to reteach, especially if you see, like you said, I just saw Mrs. Jackson also put in the chat that, you know, her kids is in 2 groups.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're seeing that a lot, you could teach one of the prerequisite lessons. And we're going to talk about how you can skip over certain things to add to, you know, that particular lesson, meaning a prerequisite lesson.
Mhm.
And that way that, you know, hopefully we'll get some of those bubble students to be able to move. You know, we know that everybody, if it's a lot of them, we know that everybody's not going to catch on. We hope. But, you know, if we can get a couple of them to improve on that particular skill standard, then, you know, definitely reteaching is, as a whole group, is definitely recommended. All right, let's continue on. Good pacing, good time. All right, the prerequisite. What does prerequisite mean? What does prerequisite mean?
What you need to know before you embark on that unit or something.
Oh yeah,
You're,
that's
you know,
correct. All right, is what our students should know, right, based on what they have been taught in the previous grade or grades. So with this report, prerequisite report, is based on students' results on the diagnostic, and it adds on to what I just showed you, where you get to look and see how you can utilize that data to make instructional decisions. So if you access reports, again, going through class, make sure it's on diagnostic. And the third column, you'll see prerequisites at the top. You'll click on that. And that'll give you access to your classroom data. Now, how can we utilize it? Let's watch the video and see. All right, let me stop sharing this and then share the video.
Students build their mathematical understandings over multiple years, so teachers need tools for gauging if students are ready for grade level instruction. The prerequisites report provides data on students' understanding of the prerequisite skills for each unit, which can help with planning and pacing throughout the school year. The report organizes evidence of student understanding of prerequisite skills from the diagnostic and maps it onto the units and lessons you are teaching in your daily classroom instruction. It provides insights so you can use when planning for whole group and small group instruction. Getting good data on the diagnostic is critical for receiving the best possible instructional recommendations. To create the report, select your class or report group, then the grade, and finally the unit you are teaching. Note that some of the units on the drop-down may be divided into smaller sets of related lessons rather than the entire unit. Start by reading the unit overview to understand the context for the upcoming group of lessons. A unit flow and progression video connects the different models and strategies that students may employ over the course of the unit. Prerequisite skills needed for this unit are listed on the left. Look at the essential skills first. These skills play a larger role and are most important for upcoming learning. A green check indicates that students have likely acquired the skill. Additional support indicates a skill in which students would benefit from some review. An in-depth review indicates skills in which students need intensive, focused instruction. Next, consider the placement and performance of all students. The class is divided into as many as 4 unit groups based on their likely understanding of each of the prerequisite skills. Note both strengths to build on and areas of need. Of course, as powerful as this report is, it is just one data point to consider, alongside formal and informal assessments and your own observations of student work. For each unit group, there are detailed recommendations on how to support those students during this unit. Consider what you know about your students and what supports might be most appropriate for them. Groups with green checks, like the unit group A here, have likely acquired the prerequisite skills and are ready for grade level instruction, whereas unit group B will likely need some additional support with grade level concepts. Students in groups needing in-depth review, like those in unit groups C and D, will likely require instruction on prerequisite concepts during small group or whole class instruction. Pay special attention to these students' needs and prioritize pulling them for small group instruction. The loss of instructional time brought about by extended school closures may have had an impact on student readiness. There may be fewer students in unit group A and more students falling into unit groups B, C, and D at the start of the school year because of the instruction your students missed. We can use the data provided by the prerequisites report to plan both whole class and small group differentiated sessions to make the most of instructional time this year. The yearly pacing for prerequisites and unit and lesson support guides can help you manage the task of making up for lost learning while still covering grade level standards. How your students performed on the prerequisite skills will determine how you will use the guidance found in these documents. There are 4 common scenarios within the report that you are likely to see with your classes. If you find that most of your class has likely acquired the prerequisite skills, indicated by green check marks, you can follow the normal pacing guidance found in your teacher's guide. If you have small groups of students in need of additional support or in-depth review, those students should receive differentiated supports during small group or independent work time. Use the recommended resources when planning the activities for these groups, especially during refined sessions. The small groups you make should be flexible, and you will likely see students jump between groups as you progress through the units. If you find that most of your students are in need of additional support, you should begin by reading the unit and lesson support document and pay special attention to the on-the-spot teaching tips to help address students' needs. You can integrate instruction of prerequisite skills while still following the normal pacing for the unit. If most of your students require in-depth review, you may choose to teach portions of the lesson from the prior grade level to ensure students are ready to engage with the grade level content. Begin by reading the unit and lesson support guidance. Based upon what you know about your students, decide which skills or concepts you will focus on and which prior grade lessons you will teach. Then refer to the yearly pacing for prerequisites guidance to help you determine how to adjust your pacing to accommodate adding prerequisite lessons. This guide shows the number of instructional days needed for each lesson and suggests lessons that can be shortened to make up time. The prerequisite report and accompanying resources can help you address the challenge of gaps in understanding while providing a pathway for students to get the grade level instruction they need to move forward. For more information about the report and everything having to do with Ready Classroom Mathematics, please visit Ready Classroom Central, our support site for the program.
All right. So, me personally, I definitely love the prerequisite reports because not only does it group it based on the kids' abilities, but it also based on the lesson that I'm teaching. And it kind of like covers all the different things that was asked. You know, like Ms. Diaz asking about, is there prerequisite lessons? If it's a whole group, yes, all that is given to you with this report. This is going to be this part of the program is probably going to be our focus this school year. You know, we have been to school that they talk about as far as our data talks, our conversations that teachers are having, the data trackers and teachers utilizing the different resources. So we want to continue to grow and continue to utilize what we've been doing here at our school, here at Cedarbrook. So again, the prerequisite, not only does it gives you the grouping, but also for yourself, you could watch a video of how that lesson progresses or how that unit progresses. That's also a good video. If I'm starting a new unit, I will show my students so they have an idea of where we're starting and how each of the lessons are connected. It gives you an idea also too, as far as the lesson progression. You know, if like Ms. Diaz said, I have a large amount of students who are in a certain group that need more review, then it'll let you know exactly where you need to go and what you can use here in the learning progression. Also, you see the recommendations. So even though this group A is your high flyers, meaning that they're on grade level or above, that doesn't mean that we don't do anything, any type of intervention or enrichment for them. The enrichment is there. So there are activities and things that the students can do. And again, it should be done during your center time. Or we're going to have a built-in win time, which is, you know, small group or individual instruction. All right. So that's the end of this PD. And like I said, we'll be connecting to next week's data presentation or our data PD that we have here at Cedarbrook, where you'll be analyzing your classroom data through the reports that I just showed you. So I'm going to open up to any questions before we get to the exit ticket. Any questions, comments? All right, so I'm going to ask everybody, please answer these two questions. As this is your exit ticket, please put it into the chat. First question is, why is it important to know how to access your students' data? And then second question is, what are some benefits of having our student data at our fingertips? Please take the next 3 to 5 minutes to complete, and please put it in the chat. Your responses do get shared with Dr. Gordon, as well as you know, your attendance to show the interaction that goes on during our meetings. Again, please answer the two questions. Great insight. Thank you, Miss Carey. Mrs. Carey. Thank you, Mrs. Diaz. And as you are finishing up your thoughts, again, this is one of the initiatives of our district is to really focus and zoom in into our data, making sure that students are keeping track of their data. One of the things that I did pass out, and I know some of your classrooms already started, which is our data/math folders, where students are taking ownership of their data. And we know how important when students take ownership of their learning, the trends show that they improve significantly. So for those teachers who have not reached out to me about creating those folders, please email me so I can definitely support you there. That way your students are using all the resources that come with this program, such as their data trackers, their tracker for iReady, which is their individual MyPath learning. And also, too, a part of the folders is I created also where students, and I should have modeled, and that's poor me because definitely the visual, but I should have modeled this for you. But, where they have, these are the folders. And like I said, before I created a data tracker for you, if you're interested in it. I'll send you the Microsoft Word copy. That way you can fix it, change it, however, spice it up wherever you want to. And then again, with the diagnostic scores, students can see where they scored the first diagnostic all the way to the last one, how close are they to be on grade level or above. All those things I've either sent to you or they're part of our Math Schoology page. There's a lot of other resources over the last 2 years that I've sent out that if you're interested in redoing, please let me know.
Oh, Mr. Akbar, the words for the word wall, did you send those out or are you gonna send them out?
I did not. So we're going to have a PD on it.
Okay.
But I'll give you guys, what was spoken about and how we're going to utilize it. Because of what she wants on the word wall, it's going to be a little different than what we did over the last couple of years. So I do have an example here, and you've probably seen this before. But what she wants is almost the size of a paper. I mean, 8.5 by 11 sheet. She wants this bottom portion, which has the word, which has a picture to go along with it. The third part, which some of us never had before as far as the words, is the definition included. So just this bottom part will be put onto a poster or your wall.
Can we see it?
Based on the unit that you're on.
So how many words are there? There's a lot of words then, right?
Right. So just based on the lessons or the unit, you'll put them on the walls, or you'll put it on a poster. And then based on, where you're at, you could take the poster down or have a place where students can always go back and take a look at it. Like I said, this is a PD itself. We'll be creating it at that time. At this point, at first it was an emphasis. Now it'll slowly come an emphasis as we move on through the school year. So I know Ms. Jackson, Ms. Webster, they have access to the words because that was part of the new teacher orientation with Mrs. Morris. But I haven't sent out anything because I didn't want any confusion. And I didn't want to tell you one thing and then all of a sudden have to switch it up.
What was wrong with last year's? Why did they change it?
Again, the definition. She wanted the definition to be a part of it.
Oh.
And the key thing is that, with Dr. Mitchell, Mr. Williams, they want everything to be uniform. They want everything to be similar. So if they go into Stillman, what Stillman has on their word wall should be very similar to what we have. And Ms. Diaz?
So the current word walls that we had last year, we're taking those down.
Yeah, I will leave it up for right now until you get the PD, because it may not even come from me. It may come from Mrs. Morris. Just hold off on it.
Okay. And you said you were emailing the new words?
I will send it out. Not only, I always print it out for you guys.
Okay.
So, all right. Any other questions, comments? Again, the key thing as I leave out, we're going to have time to take a look at our data on Monday, next Monday. And, if you haven't started your data math binder, I would do so. As they will be popping in and out, having walkthroughs, and they will be asking you those questions about how are you tracking your students' data, where are you putting it, are they tracking it? So, if you haven't started it, please do so. If you need any type of support, just let me know. And go from there. All right. So again, our next step is I'll be conducting a PD for K5 on Monday, where we'll be breaking down our own diagnostic data. Actually, tomorrow, one of the representatives from the program will be here with the administration team and myself, as we're taking a look at everybody's data so far with the diagnostic and how we can move forward with it. I will turnkey that information to you on the 3rd based on our discussion. I am going to send to you this PowerPoint, and part of the PowerPoint, it gives you the other tentative dates as far as the iReady diagnostic. I know this is my veteran group where, what you should be doing before the diagnostic. And again, how you can monitor students and so forth. Those forms I'll be sending out to you also. I'll also be sending you those fingertip reports or reference sheets based on what I talked about today. That way you have it. It gives you a little more deeper dive into those reports and what everything means. So again, I'll be sending that out to you. And last but not least, and everybody here, you know how to contact me. I think everybody has my cell phone number. Any issues, best bet is to text me, because who knows where I am in the building. That way that I can get your answers, your questions answered as soon as possible. All right. That is it. That is it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate each and every one of you. It's going to be another successful year working with you guys. This is the one of many PDs that we'll be having together. We'll probably be more in person than virtual, as that's the big push with the district. So I'll let you know. I really like being virtual because we can record it. Thank you, thank you. You guys have a good night.
Thank you. You
Good
too.
night. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Akbar. See you.
See you.